Hi, I'm Hennessy. I am currently a second-year environmental science major at UCLA.
And I'm Taylor, a third-year biology, computing, and environmental science student at UCLA.
And I'm Madeline. I'm a second-year atmospheric oceanic science major, and we're all members of this year's SAR Zero Waste team. As part of SAR, UCLA's Sustainability Action Research Program, we will perform research and implement zero waste-oriented projects around campus. This year, our team plans to conduct waste audits in 3 buildings, specifically Volter, Murphy, and Public Affairs. By conducting these audits, we are looking to analyze patterns and general habits as it comes to waste sorting. After identifying the most common mistakes or problems when it comes to sorting waste, we will create infographics and suggest best practices for campus operations so that we continue to make tangible progress towards our zero waste policy target of 90% diversion from landfill by 2025.
As we work on our research project, it is important that we consider the importance of EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion. At its core, EDI seeks to address the systemic and social injustices faced by ethnic and racial minorities, low-income communities, and other marginalized groups. Too often, environmental issues disproportionately harm or exclude Black, Indigenous, and people of color, as well as people of low socioeconomic status and members of the LGBTQIA community. Environmental campaigns often do not consider these marginalized and minority groups as their target audiences, perpetuating issues of environmental inequities. Therefore, our SAR Zero Waste team is committed to integrating EDI into our project in order to foster greater environmental justice and inclusion. Take South Los Angeles, a low-income community that is predominantly African American and Latinx. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the grocers in South LA serve twice as many as those in West LA, a more affluent white area, while South LA has a higher density of fast food. As a result, South LA residents are overexposed to processed fast food, increasing their carbon, water, land use, and waste footprints. Given their limited access to farmers markets and full-scale grocers, the South LA community is prevented from making more sustainable food choices. Therefore, sustainability campaigns that encourage individual action and responsibility throughout all of Los Angeles fail to consider inclusion and equity, neglecting diverse communities such as those in South LA. EDI clearly has a place in sustainability and is especially relevant to our team's goals of zero waste. Interestingly, Martin Luther King Jr. identified the intersection of race and consumption in his address on New Politics in 1967. He stated, "We must rapidly begin the shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society," citing materialism as one of the 3 evils of society. MLK Jr. saw that a system motivated by profit and material attainment exacerbates and prolongs poverty and injustice. Fundamental to achieving zero waste is to limit consumption at the onset. Shifting our societal mentality to prioritize people over things, ultimately reducing each of our footprints, is critical for limiting the existing disproportionate harm that marginalized communities face. According to a census conducted by the Federal Reserve in 2019, Black families' median and mean wealth is less than 15% that of white families. Therefore, it is crucial to acknowledge the greater spending power and subsequent excess consumption and waste by affluent, typically white communities. Worse, it is the minority communities who contribute less to waste production that bear the brunt of the resulting environmental degradation. Therefore, prioritizing EDI within environmental concerns is critical for ensuring environmental justice, specifically in relation to health equity. For instance, landfill sites tend to be located near low-income communities of color. This entails a higher risk and rate of toxin exposure that a case study in 2019 found ultimately leads to medical concerns such as asthma, cuts, diarrhea, stomach pain, reoccurring flu, cholera, malaria, cough, skin irritation, and tuberculosis. What's more, research has found that it takes 20% longer for minority communities to be listed as a priority cleanup site compared to white communities. Moreover, hazardous waste penalties were 500% higher for white communities. This is just one example of how environmental degradation is harming minority, low-income communities at elevated rates. Considering these health disparities, it is vital that EDI be considered within sustainability to ensure a safe and healthy environment for all.
Developed nations export their plastic waste to other countries, which tend to be underdeveloped ones. The U.S., the largest producer of waste globally, exported 1.18 million tons of plastic waste to other nations in 2018. Out of these exports, 78% were delivered to countries with poor waste management themselves. Therefore, instead of investing money into its own recycling and waste management infrastructure, the U.S. amplifies the zero waste issue by making it more likely for its waste to be mishandled, illegally dumped, and so forth. High-income countries account for 34% of the world's waste, but only 16% of the population. Furthermore, developing nations, which are predominantly communities of color at a global scale, are left to bear the responsibility of dealing with the waste left behind by wealthy nations, which is an obvious inequity. Countries that the waste is exported to include Canada, South Korea, Taiwan, China, Hong Kong, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Mexico, Thailand, Turkey, and Vietnam. Climate change impacts some of these communities disproportionately as more frequent extreme precipitation events cause flooding at waste management treatment plants or landfills. Like Taylor discussed earlier, landfills are often in minority communities because of the presence of systemic practices, and after flooding, the toxins from these landfills plants are released into the water. Some examples, just in the past few years in LA, are the Hyperion treatment plant releasing 17 million gallons of raw sewage in Santa Monica Bay in July 2021. Another example is a recent sewage pipe leak in the city of Carson, California, where a spill of 8.5 million gallons of raw sewage leaked and covered the streets, and as such an event happened for the second time there in 5 years. EDI also encompasses accessibility to zero-waste products and practices. Purchasing longer-lasting products that generate less waste long-term can be much more expensive and unaffordable for those of a lower socioeconomic status. When it comes to production and consumption, cheaper materials are unfortunately made of less sustainable materials and processes. For example, the bamboo toothbrush and other more sustainable alternatives sold at the UCLA store and zero-waste stores online are priced much higher than their plastic counterparts, which makes them less feasible options for students who struggle with their finances. We must recognize that accessibility to sustainable products is not necessarily equal, so we cannot hold all communities to the same standards the way that society is structured now. We must increase accessibility to sustainable products for low-income families and communities.
One way that our team plans to incorporate EDI into our project is by reaching out to certain clubs and organizations where we can conduct student surveys. The intention of our survey is to gauge student opinion and attitudes towards zero waste. With this survey, it's intended to generalize students' opinions, but it's also important to hear from all the unique voices throughout the UCLA student community. Some clubs and organizations that the team will reach out to will be advertised to include the Queer Alliance, the Latino American Student Association, and the American Indian Student Association, just to name a few. Another way that our team will incorporate EDI is through educational infographics. In the second phase of the project, during spring quarter, our team will work on the summarizing of data from the waste audits in a way that is easy to understand and intuitive for everyone, and not just to a specific subpopulation. This means defining any words that may need clarification for those who are not already involved in or familiar with the work in sustainability. Some words we may define are waste audit and zero waste. In relation to this, the team will also make sure that these infographics do not just reach one group or two groups. Similar to how the team plans to contact various student organizations and clubs to advertise the student survey, the team will also contact various organizations and clubs to post or feature the infographic. In these infographics, the team will make sure to have at least one slide dedicated solely to highlight the importance of EDI. Intentionally and actively incorporating EDI into a project and all sustainability efforts is critical to ensure that we will include all members of the diverse community at UCLA. There is still so much to be done in order to dismantle the years and years of systematic injustices against minority communities as it relates to environmental issues. As our team conducts research over the next 6 quarters, we hope to effectively integrate EDI into our project so that we can work towards a more sustainable and equitable for all.